in the field, a couple pennies compared to what it costs in a hospital now. This is Grameen Bank, early pioneer in micro-lending. This is a bank that gives loans out to some of the poorest people in the world in places like Bangladesh. And the way that they do it is they use this idea of group credit. And so it incentivizes people to pay their bills or pay their loans back, and it incentivizes them to act as a collective, which is awesome. I think something like $1 billion in loans last year alone. And then there's people like Method and Hello Health, and this is Preserve. Lots of companies that are doing well at the center of the business. They're fed up with the other way and maximizing short-term profits and the rest of it. And so I think what Nexcos are recognizing is that not only is it better for the world, but it's better for business. People want to work for businesses that are doing something worthwhile, and people want to buy products from them as well. So the third one is experimental, and I find this one really, really fascinating, because if you think about the conventional wisdom around most 20th century corporations, it was all about command and control and management and top-down and creating these systems for efficiencies and really focused on process. Nexcos don't do that. They understand that R&D isn't outsourced to a department, that it's the collective intelligence of the group. And they create the conditions for people to fail and play. And I love this notion of living in perpetual beta. There isn't one strategy that you stick to. You have multiple strategies. You can't talk about this without talking about Google. They're famous for the 20%, where engineers can spend 20% of their time on passion projects. And I think one of the things I didn't know until recently is more than 25% of their revenue actually comes from projects like that, like AdSense. Gmail is another great example. Comes from this. It's not just Silicon Valley, though. This is a powerhouse in India called Tata Group. They've worked very hard to put innovation at the heart of their business and create those same conditions. But what's interesting about Tata, I think, is that they focus on doing more with less. That makes sense because they're in India, but it's also going to be a skill that's needed everywhere in the world. This is a company called Build Your Dreams. What a crazy name. It's a Chinese company that's focusing on electric cars, but solar-generated electric cars, which I think is just an awesome idea. You know, the whole idea of an electric car seems like in this country is kind of a weird one, because you still have to plug it into coal and you still have to plug it into some form of fossil fuel, but these guys are doing it through the power of the sun, which is awesome. So the fourth characteristic of Nexco is one that breaks down boundaries between silos in the organization, between consumer and producer, and between even competitors. Right? It's this idea of boundaryless. Amazon's a great example of that. Instead of competing with other retailers, they created a marketplace where you share their infrastructure and you share their, all of the infrastructure. But they also are quite famous for working on product development cross-disciplinary. So very, very much a boundaryless company. Red was founded on the idea of partnership and coming together for a common good. I think it's an awesome example of a boundaryless company. And some of these partners came together to sell product together, but also more importantly, a lot of these products were sourced in Africa. So manufacturing started happening in Africa as a result. This is a little group in New York City called General Assembly. It's a lab for entrepreneurship. It's like an education center as well, but it's a shared office space, so competitors can come together and learn from each other, which I think is an awesome thing. And then LinkedIn is also pretty famous for outsourcing its product development to users. So they're blurring that line between producer and consumer. Hashtags is a good example of a product that came from that. And the last